Hello and welcome back to the Odds Now YouTube channel. I hope you're all having a fantastic Easter weekend wherever you are. My name is Matt Hill and I'm here to provide you with some quick fire analysis on this weekend's Euro Tour event over in the PDC. It is the German Darts Grand Prix. It gets underway a little bit later today with the round one action, but really all or most of the big names come in tomorrow. This event is played across Saturday, Sunday and Monday, the 19th, 20th and 21st of April. And I'm going to be having a quick look at who's playing, the outrights market and where the value might be. I've got 4 selections in the outright market, along with a staking plan if you do want to follow along, and a couple of match bets for you as well to round things off. So before we go any further, let me bring the outright odds onto the bottom of your screen there. And as you can see, we've got Luke Littler in there as a 3-1 favourite, going priced next at 10s. Then it's 14s, Michael van Gerwen, who's out of form, must be said. Josh Rock, 18s, alongside Rob Cross. And then Jan van Veen, Damon Heta, both at 25-1. We have Ross Smith, Mike De Decker at 33s, Cami Menzies, Danny Noppert, Michael Smith, and Wessel Nijman, all at 40s, alongside Johnny Clayson. And then we have 3 players at 50-1 in Dave Chisnell, Dirk van Duijvenbode and Ryan Searle. And it's 66-1 or bigger, the remainder. Now, just a little bit of a rundown for you on how this tournament works. If you're not familiar with the European Tour, we have round one action today, where we have 16 round one ties, and the 16 winners of those will go on to play 16 seeds in round 2. So we have 48 players overall. That field will be whittled down to 32 by the end of play today. And then it's 5 rounds of their straight knockouts. And these are best of 11 format until the semi-finals, when it goes up to best of 13 and best of 15. So very similar to the Pro Tour events, if you're familiar with those that take place on the floor 30 plus times a year. And this is the 4th European Tour event as well. And it's slightly different to the Pro Tour in that obviously it's been played on a big stage in front of a packed arena. So that does change my thinking somewhat with certain players, it must be said. But first, let's get into it. And at the top end of the market, anyone who follows my darts content regularly will know I'm not a big lover of the top of the market. I tend to take the favourites on, but there are occasions where you just quite simply have to say that I think there's a bet at the top of the market. So I'm going to be staking 5 points in total on this outright market, and 2.5 of those points, so 50% of my outright staking plan, is going on Luke Littler. It's the first time I've put Littler up this year for any event, but I think 3-1, quite simply, is too big in this field. And it's still available with a couple of soft bookmakers, the likes of Unibet, BetMGM, LiveScore bet. So if you can find a way of getting on with this 3-1, I think it's a really decent price. I have Littler much closer to 2-1 for this event at the off. And I actually think the way that his draw has fell, that we could be talking about him being sort of evens odds on by Sunday afternoon, sorry. So yeah, I just think it's silly to pass up the chance to get Littler on side here at 3-1. If I bring the draw up onto your screen here, so this is the top half of the draw. Let me just remove that banner for a second. This is the top half of the draw for the German Darts Grand Prix. And you can see Luke Littler in there, #1 seed. Now, the seeds have actually shuffled around a little bit in the last 24 hours. It was confirmed after the draw that Luke Humphries wouldn't be playing in this event. He was expected to. Nathan Aspinall, another notable absentee, Stephen Bunting, who've all had recent success on the Euro Tour, all not playing here. So obviously that strengthens the favourites at the top of the market. But I think some of these bookies have been really slow to react to that news, because Littler now comes in as the #1 seed, and I think he benefits from personally a very kind quarter here. He's going to take on the winner of Luke Woodhouse and Cam Crabtree in his opener. I think that's a perfectly fine game for Littler. I think they're both good players, but I'm not sure any of them quite have the self-belief or established enough on the big stage to go and beat Luke Littler. Beyond that, he'll play one of Richie Edhouse, Mickey Mansell, or Joe Cullen in round 3. Again, I'm not sure any of these guys are in good enough form to press Littler. Cullen at his best would obviously be a different proposition entirely, but he hasn't really been at his best bar the odd 1 or 2 games for the last 2 years. So I feel like getting in with a seeded Joe Cullen was a good result here. Again, Richie Edhouse and Mickey Mansell, if they're on their best form, they're a handful for anybody. But I do believe that Littler just quite simply outscores both of them as well. So I won't be surprised to see Edhouse or Mansell knock Cullen out. But equally, if it is Cullen or if it's one of the other two, I think it's a good draw for Littler. So I'm effectively seeing Littler automatically in the kind of quarterfinals where he would likely face one of Mike De Decker, Peter Wright, or Danny Noppert. Now, obviously, you're not going to go all the way through a tournament without playing very tough players, particularly on the European Tour. You do normally have to beat 2 or 3 big names to win the title. However, I think when you look at the 3 that he's potentially facing in this quarterfinal, I don't think he'd be particularly concerned. Peter Wright is an enigma, as we all know. Did show some good form on the floor a couple of weeks ago when winning a Pro Tour event, but it tends to be good days rather than good weeks and months for Peter Wright at this stage of his career. And I think generally speaking, he's only going to beat Littler maybe 1 in 10 times at this stage of his career, to be honest. He really does need everything to go right for him there. Mike De Decker is somebody I actually backed in midweek on the floor because his scoring game is in rude health, but unfortunately the doubles are not. And I think he survived 8 or 9 match starts in his first game on the Pro Tour on Tuesday, and then ended up losing in the next one. So I think that doubling would be of a major concern. Now, if he can get that doubling to click, De Decker is a completely different proposition. But I think the fact he's 33-1 in this market, I think people are maybe overreacting a little bit to the 180 stats he's been posting recently, because ultimately, if he can't finish off these legs, then it's no good, is it? And Littler, when he does have an off day, the scoring is still there, isn't it? And the doubling is not. So I think even if Littler was to have an off day, him and De Decker, I don't think he would like fall behind in legs because of De Decker's scoring, where a lot of people would. So again, happy to take De Decker on there. And then Danny Noppert is probably the one that causes me the most concern in Littler's quarter. I just think he's a very solid operator, not one to get rattled. But equally, his Euro Tour form has been pretty dire this year. He's someone I associate with getting to the latter stages of these tournaments all the time, and it just hasn't happened for him in the first 3 events, 3 early exits. So for that reason, I think Littler is an odds-on chance to come through this quarter. And if we do get Luke Littler in the semi-finals in a field where there's no Humphries, Aspinall, Bunting, etc., I think he goes into Monday afternoon probably odds-on to win the title, and that's going to make this 3-1 look fantastic value. So I also, the other factor I want to just mention quickly with Littler, I do really like him coming off a break. Now, I don't have the stats to hand, but obviously this young man has got a horrendously packed schedule because of all the commitments he's doing. I mean, on top of the Premier League, the Pro Tour, the Euro Tour, all the other World Series he's signed up for now. Pretty much since he's risen to stardom, he's just been constantly playing darts left, right and centre. And even though he's a young lad, that's bound to take it out of you. And what I do really like to see with Littler every now and then is him just take a break, miss a couple of tournaments and come back refreshed. Now, obviously, he can't have a proper break with the rigours of the Premier League, but I think his Premier League performances in the last couple of weeks have been a little bit mediocre. And in the meantime, he's been having time away from the Pro Tour. He didn't turn up to either event this week, as did Humphries. So, yeah, definitely a little bit of strategy going in there. He turns up here. He's travelled, and generally his record in stage tournaments, you don't need me to tell you, is phenomenal. So I think getting 3-1 about Littler here, given the draw, given the fact there's no Luke Humphries, I think we can have a good chunky wager on Littler and be confident of him giving us a deep run for our money. Now, beyond that, I've got 3 more outright selections to put up here. 2 of them are half a point away. One of them's a quarter each way, and one of them's a quarter point each way. So staying in the top half then. And if you look at these bottom 4 matches here, this is quarter 2. And I have got one I fancy in here. It's actually my 3rd selection, but given we've got the top half up on the screen at the moment, I'll bring him up. It's Dirk van Duijvenbode, 50-1. I think is a really, really big price for the way this man has been playing recently. Half a point each way at 50-1. That is available with various bookmakers. I've really expected Dirk to be closer to 33 for this tournament. We've seen a lot of good stuff from him on the floor in the last couple of weeks. In particular, his scoring is as good as I've seen it for a long time. Now, he did have an absolute implosion in midweek. He blew a Pro Tour semi-final against Dominic Grulich, 500-1 outsider, who were actually put up on my Pro Tour column. So that was a lovely winner for us, obviously, but it did come courtesy of Dirk absolutely blowing up. It was the quarterfinal, actually, losing 6-5. He missed various match darts. I think he bust double 10 by hitting double 5 by hitting double 12 to win the match as well. So you can imagine his reaction. But generally, 99% of that game was really, really positive for Dirk. I just think he looks so assured with his first dart, and when his first dart goes in, the scoring is ridiculous. He had a phase in that match and a couple of other matches where he just looked borderline unplayable. And you're always worried with Dirk that there is an implosion or a head loss around the corner. But I think, honestly, when I look at this draw and I look at his price, 50 to 1, I just absolutely have to have him on side here. Let's take a closer look at Dirk's draw here. So he plays Andy Bolton in round 1. Andy Bolton is a tricky customer, but I think it's fair to say he's not been fantastic this year compared to previous years. Very experienced. I would expect Dirk to have too much for him in the scoring department, unless Bolton has a freakishly good day. The winner of that match will take on Dave Chisnell. Now, I think Dave Chisnell, despite his seeding as number 5, is one of the most vulnerable seeds out there at the moment. He's having a really, really tough year, is Chizzy. Nothing really gone right for him so far. I do have a lot of respect for him. Obviously, on this Euro Tour, he was the player of the year. Not last year, the year before. Won 3 events. And yeah, always a dangerous man if on form, but I've not really seen anything from Chizzy. In fact, when I'm betting on the Pro Tours at the moment, I'm actively looking for outsiders in Chizzy's section that I can kind of get with, because I just don't have any faith in him at the moment. So I think that's a great draw in terms of a seed for Dirk to take on there. And then it's going to get more tricky from there, but that's what you would expect, really, isn't it? Jermaine Watamina or Ross Smith likely to await in round 3. Now, Ross Smith is one of the form players on the circuit as well, and I could have easily made a case for him at 33 to 1. But Ross does seem to find a way to get himself beat at the moment, despite playing very well. And I just thought that I see Ross and Dirk have had some marvellous games over the years, haven't they? Particularly at one of the World Championship that went to overtime with, I think it broke the 180s record. But yeah, them two are so suited to each other. It will be a bit of a coin flip if those two turn up, I think. But that's where I'd rather be with Dirk at 50 than Ross Smith at 33 there. And then beyond that, the quarterfinal would likely see him take on one of Johnny Clayton or Jan van Veen. Andrew Gilding and Martin Schindler can't be ruled out from that section either. Schindler obviously having the home crowd behind him and very dangerous on the European Tour. Gilding showed some really good form in the week, made a Pro Tour quarterfinal. But yeah, you have to say Johnny Clayton, he did tempt me as well at the prices. I think he's 40 to 1. He was unbelievable in that Pro Tour on Tuesday, winning it with 109 average against Grulich in the final to win it 8-2. And I think he posted 5 averages of 102 or better in 7 matches. So the big question for Johnny Clayton is, can he reproduce that on the stage? We've not seen him win a title like this for a long time. And I just thought at 40s, it was just short enough, but I very nearly pulled the trigger on Johnny Clayton, I'll be honest. But maybe it just come down to Clayton at 40 or Dirk at 50. I don't think there's a lot between them on the form at the minute. I think they both have questions to answer on the biggest stage of all over the last year or so. So let's just hope for a little bit of luck with Johnny. I mean, he's got, like I said, probably Schindler. Van den Behaarder's in good form, but probably Schindler in round 2. That'll be tough with the German crowd. If Schindler turns up, he can get rid of anybody. And then Van Veen as well. I think Van Veen is incredibly short in these markets at the moment. When I look at some of the players priced above him, he's a mercurial talent, but he's still got to go and win one of these things, hasn't he? He's not won one yet. So to see him priced in below the likes of some of these really, really informed players like Johnny Clayton, like Dirk van Duijvenbode, like Ryan Searle, Mike de Decker. I don't know. I really like Van Veen, but I can't get with him at the current quotes and prices. I don't think there's any guarantee he gets out of that little mini section. He should be. I mean, he's got virtually a bye against Rene Adams in round 1. But Gilding's slow pace and improved form could be a test for him. And then, like I say, Schindler or Clayton is going to be a really tough test. So I think at 25 to 1, Jan van Veen is definitely one to sort of pass at the prices. So yeah, it's Dirk van Duijvenbode for me in that section. Like I say, 50 to 1 available right across the board. Take half a point each way, 25 to 1 if he makes the final. I think Dirk will give us a good run for our money there. So just moving into the bottom half of things then. This is the bottom half of the draw. Quarter 3 is where you see Van Gogh, Searle, Heta and Wade as the seeds. And then quarter 4 would be Cross, Michael Smith, Going Price and Josh Rock as the seeds. So I've got a pick in both of these quarters, actually. Starting with the top section, it's Damon Heta that I want to be with this week. 25-1 available with Ladbrokes. I've backed half a point each way there. And I just look at this quarter and I think it's full of quite vulnerable seeds. I think Heta appeals to me as the most rock solid of them. Michael Van Gerwen is in just dreadful form at the minute. Really, really having a tough time. There's almost no point in him turning up to these Pro Tours, to be honest. I can't remember the last time I saw him average towards a ton. Loads of first round exits. I believe at the moment, or certainly going into the most recent event, he's not even in the qualifying spots for the Players' Championship finals, which means he's not in the top 64 performers of 128 in the Pro Tour ranks this year, which is unbelievable, really, when you think of the stature of the man. We've seen some better performances in the Premier League, but even then I feel like he plays well and then he throws in a stinker in his next match. It's just very, very hard to trust. And at the moment, it's really tough to envisage him going and winning one of these. Now, his price reflects that, 14-1 for an outright market where there's no Luke Humphries. That tells you all you need to know about MVG. Now, I'm still not really at the point of wanting to get him on side here. I think he should deal with Kim Huybrechts in round 2. But beyond that, Cameron Menzies, Kevin Dutz, or Ryan Searle-Waite's in round 3. I'd probably have him underdog against all 3 of them, genuinely. Now, Searle is a player I think that have just been bubbling along quietly for a little while, not doing all that much wrong, probably just not getting the results. His price is drifting. He's very much on my radar for this and on the floor, but I think he has a tough draw here. I think whoever he plays in round 2, Cameron Menzies or Kevin Dutz, it's going to give him a real stern examination, because Searle kind of needs to ease himself into a tournament, I think, to just sort of shake off them cobwebs a little bit. And I'm not convinced this is the game to do it here. Menzies in fantastic form, won a Pro Tour recently, of course. Dutz showing some improved form last weekend, and you know, everyone a very dangerous competitor. Everybody knows that. So I wouldn't like to call that game, and that's probably the reason that I've not touched Searle in that section. But I think whoever comes through that Menzies, Dutz and Searle mini section can very much fancy themselves to turn Van Gerwen over on form, I think. Heta and Wade, the other 2 seeds them. I must say, I'd be most concerned about Heta's first game, to be honest. He's likely to play Ryan Joyce, who plays the Hungarian qualifier. And yeah, this is Joyce, always a very tough man to get rid of. He'll have had a game to eat himself up. I'm hoping Heta can hit the ground running here, because if he does deal with Joyce, I think he's got a path through to the quarterfinals here. James Wade played well on the floor last week, but he'll have Daryl Gurney or Neil Zonneveld in round 2, which again is not a banker. Zonneveld has shown some really good form on the floor. Gurney a little bit out of touch. I'd probably fancy Zonneveld to turn Gurney over there, FYI. But then, yeah, I think Heta's a great fit for Wade. I think he's composed enough to deal with the pace. He outscores him, and as much as I love Wade and as good as he is, and dangerous as he is, I do think certain players just fit quite well against his game style, and I think Heta is probably one of them. I don't think he gets put off or perturbed by the way that Wade goes about his business, really. And Heta, obviously a very capable finisher as well, which is normally where Wade has an edge on players. So I think that's a good section for Heta. I think by the time he gets to that quarterfinal, I would really fancy him against anybody in that top mini section. So this 25-1 available with Ladbrokes. And of course, if you have a feature like a Ladbrokes boost, you could get that up to 28-1. And that could be a really, really nice price. I'd have him closer to sort of 20s in this field. So a little bit of value there for me. Damon Heta, my selection in quarter 3. Then my final outright selection is in this horrendous looking bottom quarter. The seeds are Rob Cross, Michael Smith, Going Price and Josh Rock. Going Price, obviously the 10-1 second favourite for this tournament. Some would argue that's a good price on its own. Obviously, I got stuck into Gezi on the last Euro Tour a couple of weeks ago, where he missed match darts. I think it was 5-2 up against Nathan Aspinall, ended up losing 6-5. And Aspinall went on to win the title on the night as well. So that was a bitter pill to swallow, but these things happen. I still maintain that Price is in fantastic form. Really loves these Euro Tours. I couldn't really put put you off a wager on him at 10-1. I just feel like Littler's draw is so good that he is the favourite to be with on this particular weekend. There's nothing to say I won't be getting with Going Price at the next Euro Tour if his draw works out nicely. But I think he's had, you know, a decent starter in Raymond van Barneveld. I don't really think Barney believes anymore that he's good enough to sort of tussle with the very, very best lads. So I'd be a bit surprised if Barney beat Gezi here. But beyond that, he's going to play either Wessel, Nijman, Scott Williams, or Josh Rock in round 3. That is a really, really tough game. Josh Rock, probably the most informed player on the circuit at the moment. Won a Pro Tour a couple of weeks ago, has looked fantastic in the subsequent events. Yeah, it just all seems to be clicking into place for Rock. The only thing I would say about Rock is the way he chases his doubles around the board at times. It is very, very concerning. It's a habit he has to stamp out if he wants to go and compete for major titles and win major titles, I think, because he's got every other facet of his game. It's fantastic. But just sometimes at the back end of a big leg, you see him going to tops, then 10s, then 5s, and it's a little bit rushed, and it's a little bit of a mess, and he loses legs that he shouldn't. And unfortunately, when you play the very best, like a Going Price, you're not going to get away with that very often. I think whoever he plays in round in his first game as well, Nijman or Williams, will give him a stern test. And that's another reason why I couldn't be with Price or Rock, because I think they've both got their work cut out to actually make the quarterfinals. Now, whichever one of them, if either one of them gets there, I'll be very, very fearful of them from my outright perspective. However, for those reasons, I can't really get with either of those in the betting. And then in the top of this fourth quarter, you have Rob Cross and Michael Smith. Now, Michael Smith showed some improved form on the floor in the last couple of weeks, actually made a semi-final where he lost to the aforementioned Dominic Grulich. But yeah, that was a strange game where Grulich got himself 5 or 6-1 in front in a race to 7, and then Smith surged back at him to 6-4, and it just gave himself too much to do. But I do think that the signs are there with Michael Smith that there's some, improved form, and I wouldn't be that surprised to see him have a run here. That said, Mensa Suljovic or Christoph Ratajski in round 2 could have had easier draws. And then he's probably going to face one of Rob Cross or Ricardo Pietreczko, who I expect to get the better of Adam Paxton. And actually, it is that man, Pietreczko, who completes my outright book here. I want a quarter of a point each way on him at 150-1. I always like getting with Pietreczko in Germany. I think that's where we've seen all of his best form throughout his career to date. It's always been on home turf with a loud crowd behind him. Of course, he is a player that has actually polarized fans somewhat. In the UK, often quite gets a negative reception because of a spat he had with Luke Littler and among other things. But yeah, in Germany, it's a different beast. The whole crowd's usually really, really behind him. He's very popular there. And most importantly for this bet, I think he's playing quite well, actually, under the radar. I've had him on my radar for a couple of weeks. I backed him a couple of Pro Tours ago at 200-1, and he went out early. But last week, 2 really decent runs on the floor. I think he picked up 5 wins from 7 matches, which is really good, solid form. And yeah, he got some good wins along the way as well. Beat Damon Heta. I think he beat Going Price as well. So he's clearly in good nick. A lot of averages over a ton across those 2 days as well. So if we can combine some strong form with the home crowd advantage where he plays his best darts, then I think 150-1, he's worth a flyer in this section. Like I say, we'll take on Rob Cross in round 2. Now, Rob Cross is constantly priced at 3rd or 4th favourite for these Euro Tour events, but you look at his recent record in these, it's nothing to shout about. And yeah, I always feel like Rob's got a stinker in the locker as well as brilliance, and just see, it feels like a good fit for Pietreczko. I think with the German crowd, already had a game to sort of ease himself into the tournament. I think he could turn crossover at a price there, and that's another one I'd maybe bear in mind on the match betting tomorrow if that outcome does occur. And then beyond that, it would be one of Michael Smith, Ratajski, or Suljovic, who I think, to be honest, I think it'd be a pick 'em whoever he plays out of them on the form with the home crowd. I wouldn't have Pietreczko much bigger than kind of 6-5, 13-10, whoever he plays there. So could quite easily see him popping up in the quarterfinals here, at which point he'd be playing a very good player, probably Price or Rock. But equally, it's 150-1. It's a home player. and he's a good one to have in your book, I think. So for the minimum stake, quarter point each way, Ricardo Pietreczko completes my betting card there. Just before I round up this video with my outrights recap, there's a couple of round one matches that I do just want to flag up for a bet. One of them is right at the bottom of your screen here in the bottom section. Scott Williams and Wessel Nijman play each other. I'm going to back Scott Williams here to cause an upset. 19-10, just shy of 2-1 with Unibet. Anything north of 7-4, really, I think is great value here. Williams has won both of their meetings this year, and regular viewers of my content will know I'm a massive fan of Nijman from a talent perspective. I really do think he's got the lot, to be honest. But Scott Williams is a very unique player. Can be dreadful at times on the floor and really kind of look disinterested and pretty mediocre, but when he fancies it, he comes alive on the big stage. These two met at the UK Open, where we backed Williams for the upset at north of 2-1, and he duly delivered, winning 6-5. They've since met again this year, with Scott Williams winning 6-2. And I just wonder if this is becoming a bit of a bogey player for Nijman, who seems to find ways to get himself beat in the early rounds of these European tours, despite playing some decent stuff. And I think Scott Williams, again, with the crowd in, I'm expecting him to be looking forward to this. He'll know he's won the last two. Traveling over, there's a lot of effort gone into going to this tournament for Scott Williams. And when he's playing someone here that he's expected to lose to, but he's won the last twice, that feels like the perfect recipe for me for Scott Williams to fire himself up and cause another upset here. So I think they're 19-10, but like I say, 7-4 or better on Scott Williams to beat Wessel Nijman will do for me as a single. The only other one I want to raise is in the top half. So let me move back up to here, and it's in that top quarter. Madars Razma plays Rob Grundy with the winner to play Danny Noppert. I was quite taken with a couple of Rob Grundy's results recently. He's lost a lot of games on the Pro Tour, 6-4 and 6-5 in recent times, to some really good players, the likes of Josh Rock, Willie O'Connor, Gerwin Price, among others. So he's not been doing much wrong, and he finally got himself a couple of wins in midweek. Did Grundy. He beat Carl Sneyd 6-5, and then he beat Josh Rock 6-2. Really impressive performance. I think he averaged around a ton there, and then lost 6-5 to Jimmy Van Schie in the last 32. So I thought that was an encouraging outing from the Hartlepool-born star, and yeah, I quite like his price here, 9-4. Razma is rock solid, isn't he? Normally, I mean, he normally does win these round one, round two games, and then just struggles to kick on from there. But I just wonder if he's a little bit vulnerable here to a player with nothing to lose. And I feel like if Grundy can carry that form in that we saw in midweek and we've seen over the last couple of weeks, then I think this is a really tight game. So to have one guy at 1-3 and one at 9-4, it just doesn't feel quite right to me. So Rob Grundy to beat Madars Razma at 9-4 with Sporting Index would be my other pick from today's matches. Okay, just before I let you go then, I will just round off my picks for the German Darts Grand Prix. Let me take that one off and that one off, and we'll go here. So yes, as I said, 5 points staked overall in the outright market. 2.5 of those are going on Luke Littler. Perhaps not the most imaginative selection, but like I said, it's the first time I've backed Littler this year for anything. But I think the price is right here. 3-1 in a field without Humphries and with a kind draw. Feels quite a bit too big to me. I'd have him closer to 2-1. I think we could be talking about somebody who will be odds on by tomorrow evening. So yeah, I think take that 3-1 for a chunk, and I think it gives you a rock solid base to build the rest of your card off. And like I said, just 3 selections with my other 2.5 points are going to have half a point each way on Damon Heta at 25-1, 2 places with Ladbrokes, and half a point each way on Dirk van Duijvenbode at 50-1, 2 places. That's available right across the board with most firms. Make sure you do get that 50-1, because I think Bet365 have cut him into 33 or 35 this morning, which is more where I expect him to be. So don't take that 33. Make sure you shop around and get the 50s, because it is there in ample measure. And then quarter of a point each way to finish it off on the hometown boy, Ricardo Pietreczko, who I think has shown improved form recently and may be able to sneak his way through to around the quarterfinal stage, at which point it would get very interesting. And as I mentioned, a couple of match bets as well to go with these. I've not got a graphic for these, but Scott Williams to beat Wessel Nijman today is 19-10 with Unibet, and Rob Grundy to beat Madars Razma at 9-4 with Sporting Index. So that concludes my roundup of the German Darts Grand Prix. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know who you're backing for success in Munich this weekend. And yeah, we'll be back very soon for the Pro Tour action, which rolls on. I'll have some written previews up on the website for those. Do give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to hit subscribe to keep up with all of the latest odds now action. We've got some snooker content for the World Championship, plenty of football coming up, darts, and many more events. So we'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching, and take care.